The learning goal of this lesson is to analyse how form and structure are used to shape meaning in the diary of a young girl. Obviously, the diary of a young girl is Anna's personal diary that she kept between the 12th of June 1942 and the 1st of August 1944. The diary is epistolary, written as a series of letters to a fictive person, Kitty. Anna often addresses Kitty in the second person, you, making readers feel as if Anna is writing to them. I think this is a really good example of how form influences language, which in turn influences meaning. In reading Anna's diary, we are peeking into her most private thoughts and feelings, experiencing her emotions, joy, fear, and anger, and her dreams. The diary is a non-judgmental confidant, allowing Anna to vent. She's able to write things to Kitty that would be impossible to say and maintain any sort of positive relationship. On the 15th of June 1942, Anna described one of the students in her class, Jay, as a detestable, sneaky, stuck-up, two-faced gossip. At different stages, Anna writes unflattering things about all the members of the annex, especially her mother. However, she provides a form of rueful commentary on earlier entries when she edited and rewrote her diary in 1943-1944. On the 29th of July 1943, Anna records a confrontation between Mrs. Van Daan and herself. She wrote that Mrs. Van D is exceedingly pushy, egotistical, cunning, calculating, perpetually dissatisfied, vain, coquettish, despicable, too stupid, and too ugly. Anna added a PS later. Will the reader please take into consideration that this story was written before the writer's fury had cooled? As well as rewriting and editing, Anna also added entries from memory. Because of this, you could argue that the diary of a young girl is a memoir. Memoir is French and means reminisce or memory. Structurally, the diary of a young girl fits within the memoir genre for a number of reasons. Firstly, Anna actively reflects on her experiences in the annex. Secondly, memoirs are generally told in the first person, and in the diary of a young girl, Anna is a subjective first-person narrator. Her first diary entry on her 13th birthday reads, "I hope I'll be able to confide everything to you, as I have never been able to confide in anyone, and I hope you'll be a great source of comfort and support." In contrast to the subjective first-person voice of Anna's diary, the introduction, foreword, and the afterword are written in the third person. A great way for you to add an extra mark or two to your essay is to analyse the effect that the different narrative voices has on readers. Thirdly, the diary focuses on a time in Anna's life that was unusually vivid. This phrase comes from William Zissner's Inventing the Truth, the art and craft of memoir. In the book, he asserts, memoir narrows the lens, focusing on a time in the writer's life that was unusually vivid, such as childhood or adolescence, or that was framed by war, or travel, or public service, or some other special circumstance. The Diary of a Young Girl fits this definition of memoir, as it represents Anna's adolescent experience hiding in the secret annex during the Holocaust. If I had to identify the genre of the Diary of a Young Girl, I'd call it a diary. After all, that's what it's called in the title. In an essay written in 1997, Hedda Rosnikoff asserted that, unlike memoirs and autobiographies, which recollect and report at some time later in the subject's life, a diary records events and feelings as they are happening to the writer or very shortly after they occur. Therefore, the diary is a more immediate and often more accurate account of events and the writer's responses to them. Diary entries, however, do not have the benefit of the writer's understanding of how those events were resolved or what would come to mean in the writer's life. For the most part, diary entries are made up of the raw material of the self. It's obvious that the Diary of a Young Girl fits within Rosnikoff's definition. However, I believe that the Diary of a Young Girl, like most texts, is a hybrid of a number of genres. This makes the text slightly ambiguous. It could be identified as a memoir, a Bildungsroman, an epistolary novel, and of course, a diary. The most important thing for you to recognise is that the Diary of a Young Girl is a non-fiction text, and you need to analyse what a non-fiction text actually is. It's important that you understand that all texts are constructions, including non-fiction texts. We automatically view some forms of text as truth and reality. For example, it's natural to think that a news and a current affair program feature will contain more truth than a poem. However, a news feature may be based on inaccurate information, and a poem may reflect a poet's personal experience. Therefore, despite the fact that The Diary of a Young Girl is a non-fiction text, we need to view it as a construction rather than a historical reality, and we need to analyse how the language, form and structure represents Otto Frank's experience of life in the secret annex. Through her use of sentence structure in version B of her diary, Anne represents the exhausting experience of hiding without respite. On May 26, 1944, she wrote, "For them the suspense is sometimes lifted, even if it is only for a short time. But for us it has never been lifted, for a moment, not for 2 years now, and how long will it keep bearing down on us with its almost unbearable, ever more oppressive hand?" Anne emulates a seemingly never-ending anxiety through her use of sentence structure and punctuation. There is a brief pause, a comma, and then the sentence continues again and again and again, feeling almost unbearable in its breathless and extended duration. Since Anna died tragically in a German concentration camp, it's necessary to understand why her father, Otto Frank, decided to construct and publish her diary. Watching speeches and interviews that he gave, I believe that Otto's purpose in constructing the text was to keep the memory of his family alive and to tell their story. In doing this, he fights anti-Semitism because the diary presents a view of a Jewish girl struggling to understand who she is. It's very human, a stark contrast to the Nazis' portrayal of Jews as inhuman. I'm reminded of something that John Steinbeck wrote. "In every bit of honest writing in the world, there is a base theme. Try to understand men. If you understand each other, you will be kind to each other. Knowing a man well never leads to hate, and nearly always leads to love. There are shorter means. There is writing promoting social change, writing punishing injustice, writing in celebration of heroism. But always that base theme. Try to understand each other." I believe that Otto wanted readers of the diary to try and understand its characters, Jews. It was his way of fighting prejudice, discrimination, and hatred. Otto structured the text to heighten the tragedy of Edith, Margot, and Anna's deaths. In the introduction, Eli Wiesel reveals that only Otto survives. This revelation has a similar effect to the prologue in Romeo and Juliet, where we discover that Romeo and Juliet are going to commit suicide. Anna's impending death darkens her joyful moments in the annex. It makes her discussion of future aspirations and dreams, such as becoming a journalist or writer, painful to read. Her death, and a million others in the Holocaust, shouldn't have happened. And that is, I believe, the point. Through the diary, Otto reaches out to readers and says this really happened. He wedges Anna's diaries between the foreword and afterword, which are both written in an objective third-person voice. This objective voice establishes the legitimacy of the diary as a historical document, a record of life inside the secret annex, and of the prejudice, discrimination and murder occurring in Europe. Anna included photographs into her diary. However, Otto and his co-editor Miriam Pressler made the decision not to include them in the definitive edition. I find this fascinating. I would have definitely included them because I think the old adage rings true. A picture says 1,000 words. Including photographs establishes the reality and truth of the characters, which I believe was important to Otto, so I'm not sure why he didn't use them. I haven't been able to find any interviews where Otto talks about the photographs, but maybe you can. I think it's an interesting thing to think about what effect photos would have had on the meaning of the diary. Please write in the comment section below if you discover anything about why photographs were omitted from the text. And that's it. You've made it. To recap the main points of the lesson, I analysed the form and structure of the Diary of a Young Girl. I'd identify the diary's genre as diary. However, it does also have elements of memoir and Bildungsroman. The diary is made up of 4 parts: introduction, foreword, the diary entries, and afterword. The subjective voice used in Anna's diaries helps readers to empathise with her, whilst the objective voice used in the foreword and afterword establishes the text as a historical document. So as the orchestra music begins to play, the final thing for me to do is to thank you so much for watching.